And this particular story is an anecdote when one of our monks, when I was too busy doing all these other things, we used to go teaching in prisons, but another monk started teaching in prison. And when he started teaching in prison, it was in Casuarina prison, one of the top security jails. After a while, the prisoners there said, "Can you stay back a bit longer? We want to sort of talk to you, just find out about you." So he stayed back a little bit longer. They gave him a cup of tea and some chocolate. If you give a monk a cup of tea and chocolate, they're going to stay forever. So he stayed behind for a bit of tea and chocolate, and they started asking him questions about life in a Buddhist monastery in the West. What do you guys do? Have you ever wondered what we do, in our monastery? And so he said, okay, the day in the life of a monk, we get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And just at that, the prisoners were aghast. 4 o'clock in the morning! Even in prison you don't have to get up that time. And the monk, he did actually make a qualification. He said, actually, it's voluntary. It's optional getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which is true. It's optional. You can always get up earlier if you want to. That's the only option. And then what do you do? And he told them, we meditate. He said, can't you just watch the end of the late night movie? So no, we don't have TVs. You don't have TVs in the monastery. We have TVs in our cells. In prison. That's terrible. So what do you do then? You have your breakfast. And we do have a breakfast at monastery. We usually have 1 cup, we have a cereal in it, and that's about it. Or, if someone like Santuti, he has his noodles. But it's only 1 cup, that's all. And I said, wow, in Casuarina jail, we can have bacon, we have pancakes, we can have cereal, we have everything there, whatever you want. And he said, why didn't you do that in the monastery? No, so we only have just a bit of cereal and that's it. And then what do you do in the morning? And then we work hard at Bodhinyana Monastery. We do this amazing chores, building. And even I do that. If you go down in retreat centres, we're doing this ramp, and I was spending 2 days cutting the bricks. This huge angle grinder, really heavy work, getting myself all dusty. And I like some joining in when there's any concrete work. I tell the story once, I was doing concrete work. When you do concrete work, even as the monk, you get it all splashed all over you. So, it's boys being boys, and I'm still a boy. Still just maybe a bit old to be a boy, but I still like getting myself all dirty. So I get all this concrete on top of me. And as I was walking back to my hut to have a shower, you passed a Sri Lankan woman. And she was in this really expensive sari. She was visiting the monastery. And she came up to me, and I'll never forget this. She said, I've come to see the abbot, Ajahn Brahm. And I was thought very quickly. And I said, madam, if you go to the hall over there, he'll probably be there in about 15 minutes. That was enough time for me to go to my room, get a shower, and get changed into some clean robes. And so I went up to the hall, and there she was waiting. And I said, I'm Ajahn Brahm. She never recognised me. That's how dirty I was. And I gave her a nice talk, about the monastery and about Buddhism and what we were doing here. And she was really impressed. And so just before she left, she said, you've got a really good monastery and you're really a good monk, but if you don't mind me saying this, I saw this really dirty monk when I came here, and I think you should do something about that. I said, I'll talk to him later, ma'am. Which I did. So that's actually how hard we work. And when the prisoners heard this, again, they were really surprised. Because, in prison you have to do jobs, but they really take it easy in those jails in Australia. They said they'll never get us to work that hard. And they said, then you have your lunch. Yeah, we have our lunch. We have it, many of you have been to a monastery, we eat it out of a bowl. Everything goes in one bowl. Sometimes it's true you do get curry on spaghetti. No, sorry, I got that wrong. You got custard on spaghetti, that's right. Have you ever had custard on spaghetti? Why are you saying yuck for? You've never eaten it. But actually, you're right, it is gross. Sometimes you have custard on spaghetti. I've had ice cream on curry. Chocolate ice cream. Yeah, that's also yucky. Because, you put it in your bowl, and for me, because I'm the senior monk, I put it in the bowl myself, and I give it to somebody to take up, because that's their duty. And by the time they're not really careful, they shake it all over the place. I put it in the right positions when I start. By the time it gets up there, it's all over the place, but that's life. And they were saying that sort of in prison, actually, even when you go to solitary, you get a tray, you know, the custard's here and the spaghetti's over there. It's separate compartments. Don't you have compartments in your bowl? Have a look at our bowls. We don't have compartments. It all goes all over the place. That's disgusting. So what do you do in the afternoons? And so we meditate. So, you know, can't you sort of, you know, play some music or sort of, you know, play a game of footy or something? No, we're not allowed to play footy. We just meditate all afternoon. So I didn't get bored. So no, what we're supposed to do? I suppose you hang out for dinner. Dinner? We don't have dinner in our monasteries. We just eat in the morning time. There's no dinner. So, or even in prison they give you something to eat in the evening and you have snacks throughout the day, whatever you want. So what do you do in the evening then? You know, can you play cards? You know, play Monopoly or something? Pass the time? And he said, no, we can't do that. Don't tell us, they said. You meditate, don't you? Yeah, of course we do. Oh, God. That must be terrible. And then what time do you go to bed? And the monk said, bed? Bed? We don't have beds. I sleep on the floor. They were absolutely disgusted. Even in prison they put you in a little cot with a mattress on top. Not in our monastery, I sleep on the floor. And anyway, the prisoners were actually really surprised. They're really surprised, but not only surprised, they felt sorry for this monk who'd been visiting them. And this is a true story. One of them was so upset that this man, who they got to like, was living in such a hard situation. One of them blurted out, "That's terrible in your monastery. Why don't you come in here and stay with us instead?" And they had a point. It is actually much more comfortable in any prison in Western Australia than in Bodhinyana Monastery or even in Dhammasavanan's monastery. So why is it that people are trying to get out of jail and they're trying to break into our monastery to stay there? Waiting lists. And that got me thinking, what's the difference between a monastery and a prison? Prison is actually more comfortable. Monastery is much more harsher. What's the difference? The only difference is, in a monastery, people want to be there. In a prison, doesn't matter how comfortable it is, people don't want to be there. That's the only difference.